Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and you with Simon today. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Pluto in aspect, and I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about how Pluto operates in the certain aspects and connections it makes to other planets, and how to reflect upon and digest what that would mean for you in your astrology chart, okay? So two things that I need to clear up for us quickly. In evolutionary astrology, this is what I'm teaching. Pluto represents the bottom line of everything, okay? It represents the choice making that we make on a day-to-day, year-to-year, month-to-month, week-to-week basis. And it represents the ongoing evolution of the soul through desire, okay? So it represents evolution in EA, and simply because in each of our experiences we're evolving through the emotional body, and Pluto represents where our emotional complexes lie, and they're very unconscious, and as we gravitate towards experiences in our lives, we are confronted with our empowerment and disempowerment. So it's the theme of empowerment and disempowerment, okay? So Pluto in the chart will, when it's making an aspect to something, will always represent something that is evolving in that dynamic, okay? Now, in aspect, what I mean by that is that Pluto is making a connection or has formed a relationship to a planet that is then creating that aspect, creating that connection, okay? So in this this chart over here, I've got over there, you can see that this is an astrology chart, right? And there's Pluto situated at the bottom of the chart. And you can see that Pluto is making a trine towards Chiron. And you can see that Pluto is making a trine towards the Sun. So those would be considered aspects, right, to the Sun and Mercury. But you can also see that Pluto is in opposition to the Moon. And Pluto is making a sextile to those planets over there. Sometimes Pluto can make a square. And a square looks like this. Between that planet and that planet over there, there's a square, all right? So oppositions like that, squares and trines would be something that I would consider as a beginner. And if you're a little bit more advanced in your astrological understanding, take into consideration inconjuncts, biquintiles like that as well, okay? So that's what I mean by aspect. So when we have Pluto in an aspect to something in the chart, we are ultimately looking at what is being evolved. So for instance, like myself, I have Pluto and I have the Sun and Mercury over here. There's the Sun and there's Mercury in a conjunction to Pluto. And that was another aspect that I wanted to say, conjunctions as well. That's when two planets are right on top of each other. Okay, so I have the Sun and Mercury conjunct Pluto. And in this lifetime, the nature of my creative expression, what I give life force to, and how I communicate that is very much part of what my soul's journey is about. And as I watch my evolution in this lifetime, I notice that I'm surrounded by a lot of people that are manifesting themselves. I'm deeply sensitive towards where my disempowerment might lie. I'm very proactive about sharing what I feel is empowering to other people. And so you can see that dynamic is happening in this lifetime. Okay, so whenever Pluto is making an aspect to a planet, you know that that's under evolution. Squares and oppositions generally and conjunctions generally represent something where there's a lot more tension and stress and development, whereas trines are a lot more empowering in the sense, I say that, I take that back. They are a lot easier to see in your life as already established empowerment. Okay, you actually support a lot of people through trines. Okay, so if you have Pluto in aspect to the Sun, it means that in this lifetime, you are looking to find creative purpose and meaning, okay? Whether it's a conjunction, whether it's a square, whether it's an opposition, it doesn't matter. If you have Pluto in connection to the Sun, you're evolving yourself in this lifetime through what gives you this meaning of special destiny, whether you see it outside of yourself or inside of yourself. When you've got Pluto connecting to Mercury, you are essentially evolving the dynamics around your intellect, okay? Your capacity to form opinions and ideas and perspectives and represent diversity through a deep soulful connection. Okay, you'll feel a lot of people around you that will have strong opinions. Plutonian experiences will arise from that. A lot of emotional confrontation, where you might feel disempowered through your communication, or other people might find your communication very empowering. So if you've got Pluto in aspect to Venus, then what we're looking at here is the evolution and emotional complexes and dynamics around relationships, right? So your relationships and how you're evolving through them. Where are you developing fairness in yourself and recognizing your essential needs? How are you able to bring your needs to a relationship and find and represent and hold other people's needs as an equal space? How do you find give and take in relationships? And there will be a lot of experiences with Pluto connecting to Venus, in which your experience of relationships can be very painful, right? And that's with all planets that Pluto makes a connection to. When Pluto aspects the moon, this is something that's very Plutonian, right? Regarding your self-image, your relationship to yourself and how you see yourself is very, very like Plutonian. And so you're empowering your feelings of security. You're learning how to identify with the nature of your desires in this lifetime through an emotional capacity. So it's a very empowering experience, but very confrontational. If you have Pluto in aspect to Mars, then you're looking at the relationship between unconscious desires and conscious action. So how are your actions and choice making reflecting deeper desires that you have in this lifetime? So this can be a very difficult experience to actually have if you've got Pluto in aspect to Mars. If Mars is squaring Pluto and Mars is in opposition to Pluto, there's a potential in your lifetime to experience quite a lot of violence. And this is because, unfortunately, in human experiences, trauma through our will being suppressed has created a lot of unconscious anger. So when Mars is in connection with Pluto, you're actually looking at direct lifetimes of evolution. But because Pluto is so incredibly intense in its energy that it's destroy to rebirth. When it's connected to Mars, there is destruction and rebirth regarding other people's desires, other people's will, your will. How do they fit in? And because Mars carries a lot of displaced emotion or anger, Mars is not essentially angry itself, it's just the human condition and its suppression, then there's a lot of potential violence, okay? Jupiter in aspect to Pluto. You're transforming and dealing with a lot of unconscious emotional material around what to believe, what is the truth, what information is valuable and what information is not valuable. How do you develop a healthy perspective that is not consumed in other people's points of views, that leaves you feeling insecure around what you know is the truth? How do you develop a point of view that supports other people's points of views, but also doesn't, neglect your own? When you've got Saturn in connection to Pluto, we're looking at the nature of the parents, society. We're looking at the way that you are conditioned in your lifetime. Now, with Pluto in connection to Saturn, this can be the loss of parents. This can be raised by your grandparents. This can be the experience of emotional trauma, emotional disempowerment through having parents that are very oppressive. Or if you've got trines, very supportive parents that helps you integrate in society in a healthy way and you understand authority. So you're learning about developing your authority in a very Plutonian way. Your soul is evolving its authority in this lifetime. When we get to the outer planets like Uranus and Neptune, then we're dealing with something that's more generational. And it's come to my attention through discovering this through my own work and understanding my own chart and my own relationship to these planets, that you don't really get to see that these Uranian Neptunian cycles a lot in your early life. And that they make a lot more sense going forward, because the more you watch how the generations change through new generations evolving and new generations coming onto the planet, as you get older, you start to notice your relationship to new generations and what your specific generation is representing. So for somebody like who has Pluto conjunct Uranus that was born in 1965, you will notice that your relationship to the Pluto and Scorpio generation, which were born 1988 to 1995, that have Uranus and Neptune, you'll see that their association with technology is different to yours. You look at the Pluto in Libra generation, okay, and for most of us, Pluto is only really an aspect to Uranus and Neptune with generations. So again, 1965, Pluto Virgos, you carry a conjunction. The next time that there will be an aspect is the Pluto in Capricorn generation that were born 2012, right? 2012. And they'll have the first square. So there's a lot to be seen in these outer planets, but it takes a lot of time for generations to reflect what they really mean for us in that sense. But ultimately, Uranus, Neptune, we're dealing with the nature of evolution around individuality and the acceleration of the soul's desires. And of course, Neptune, if you've got Pluto transiting your Neptune, as an example, or if you've got Pluto transiting any of these planets for that matter, you're always going to be evolving those dynamics. And that's how evolution actually works on a more day-to-day, month-to-month, week-to-week basis. Because Pluto is always going to be making an aspect to the sun throughout your life, right? Whether you were born with Pluto not making an aspect on a soul level, through transits, you will be having at least one Pluto square to your sun, right? Or at least one Pluto opposition, or at least one Pluto trine. So for me, I have Pluto conjunct the sun in my astrology chart as my natal chart, but it's only in 2027 will I experience the first Pluto square, right? Because that's when that will happen. So there's generally just an opposition or a square or a trine that will be manifesting. Okay, so the core here is we're looking at Pluto, we're looking at its relationship to planets, and we're looking at the nature of evolution relative to those planets. Now, if you've got Pluto conjunct the south node, or Pluto conjunct the north node, or Pluto squaring the nodes, evolutionary astrology looks at it like this. Because Pluto represents unconscious emotional complexes regarding the past, if it conjuncts the south node, then we're dealing with the nature of past life dynamics at a soul level being transformed. So you guys are prone to experiencing a lot of loss or a lot of things being taken away from you. And the reason why, from an evolutionary perspective, is that Pluto correlates to transformation, or transmutation. So whatever is dead that no longer serves the soul needs to be liberated from. So Pluto conjunct the south node reflects three dynamics. Either the soul in past life dynamics, which you can already read from the chart, has held on to things and attachments to the point in which there needs to be a Plutonian experience to remove any of those attachments to then allow for evolution to manifest themselves. And this can come through very intense ways, a loss of identity. Or you can have the polarity in this case, which is that Pluto conjunct the south node correlates to a soul that is coming into this lifetime with deep Plutonian energy that does reflect in some way, shape, or form loss, betrayal, betrayal, but the response to it is not holding on through fear, but allowing the new change to manifest. So souls that I've seen with this type of signature in the past have been ones that were born in a country and then they moved at the age of 3 to another country, and their whole entire life is now growing up in a different country to what they were born. There's a reflection of the past identity that is not really present, but is a reminder of where the soul's been, and the separation from the original culture to the new culture and integration of the culture represents that Pluto conjunct south node experience. When you've got Pluto conjunct the north node, and this is kind of like a little bit of a silly thing though, but when you've got Pluto conjunct the north node, you don't actually recognize that you are evolving the past through the future. So it's very difficult for you to identify that you feel like you are empowered. And this is something that I encourage anybody that has Pluto conjunct the north node to recognize, that you are consistently going to be evolving in this lifetime, and just keep doing what you're doing. You will always feel a sense of, I'm not empowered, so I've got to keep going. And that is the point. The point is to recognize you're on a path that is moving, and you are consistently walking on that path. You're on the right path, just keep going. Okay, just keep doing the same thing, because that's the empowerment journey, the realization of empowerment of the soul. So just keep doing the same thing. Relative to that feeling of, I need to empower myself, so I've got to I've got to try this out, I've got to try that out, I've got to try that out, I've got to try that out. And it's a consistent process of growing yourself during those feelings. When you have Pluto squaring the nodes, this is a very difficult thing. And the reason why is because on a fundamental level, the nature of the past and future fundamental level regarding the soul is at a Plutonian experience. In other words, there are two aspects of your life that are deeply, deeply empowered and disempowered. And you can recognize two of them. And it's like the past represents something that's empowering, and the present and the future represents something that's empowering. Both of them are simultaneous with your life, and yet you need to make a choice in terms of which one is needing to be healthily cultivated, right? So the way that this works is that you need to identify which node needs to be the resolution. So the way that you do that is very simple. And I'll go over to this chart over here for us to see it. Okay, so this chart doesn't have Pluto square the nodes, but I need to give you an example. Can you see that this chart has the north node there? And can you see that the south node sits there, okay? Let's just say that Venus, which is in this chart over here, Venus is Pluto. So replace Venus and put Pluto there. Can you see that Pluto is now squaring the nodes? Yes, 16 degrees, and that one's 14 degrees, so they're 90 degrees apart. So in this example, now Pluto is squaring the nodes. The way that you figure out how to resolve this is you stand on the planet that is squaring the nodes, you look straight to the middle, and you extend your left arm. And whatever planet or node is pointing to the left, that will be the resolution. So in this case, the resolution of this Pluto needs to be the north node. In other words, whatever complexities and desires that are reflected in the soul's journey, the north node is the indicator for evolution and consistent integration. And that's what the squares to the nodes represent. There's a process of the past and the future not being fully integrated. So it's like flip-flopping. Sometimes you do this north node, sometimes you do the south node. But there's never a constant integration of north node perspective, because you always get tripped up by whatever is squaring the nodes. So there's a development here. So with Pluto squaring the nodes, the development and the resolution in this chart is this north node. It implies that the soul needs to confront the nature of its own limitations, 8th house, relative to what it finds the meaning in, Pisces. So as an example, when a soul is faced with life situations, it needs to understand where it's disempowered, how it's recognizing what's disempowered in the process, and then to approach that through what is the meaning in the experience. What am I being shown here? What am I dissolving, Pisces? And through that, natural insights will occur that will create deep emotional healing and integration of Pluto in this case. But at the same time, you've got to understand that this is not simple. It's not like, oh, okay, I'll just go do that and I'll resolve the nodes. It's actually on a desire level. So it's a constant process of integration and reflecting and understanding and getting in touch with the nature of the desires and how they are split, and progressively becoming more aware of this dynamic within yourself so that you can make choices that lead you to see what the soul is actually trying to accomplish in this lifetime as an active agent for evolution. Okay? All right, everyone. I hope that this video gave you some information that helped you understand more about Pluto and aspect. And if you are interested in listening to more types of information on this or questions that you've got, please feel free to write in the comments below. I'd love to create a video to answer any of those questions. Other than that, if you are wanting readings and stuff, you can always check out my website, contact me via the email. I'd be happy to work with your soul in that sense, teach you astrology. I also run schools and stuff. So yeah. All right, guys, have a fantastic week, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.